over the course of several years leading up to 2005, it was every other year I got hit by lightning. So it was twice by ball lightning and twice by the lightning bolt lightning. And then in 2005, that I was talking on a cordless phone out on the back steps, concrete steps behind my house. We had this little roof that kind of went over the stairs. And I was talking on a cordless phone, and it started to rain. And I heard this, I don't know, it was like a rumbling in the distance. And then all of a sudden a loud crack. And I saw the lightning bolt come down and it hit my right arm. And then it traveled underneath the house and it blew the transformer in front of our house. So like the whole neighborhood was without power for about 4 hours.
Wow.
And there were black char marks left on the concrete steps where I'd been sitting, you know, where I was sitting, and then the next step down where my feet were. But it was, you know, I had this, it was an instant searing, burning, agonizing pain in my arm, and it went across my chest. And then the next thing I know, I'm just peeling up out of myself like like peeling a banana. I just popped right out, and there I was, my body's crumpled down on the ground, and I feel like me. I look like me. I didn't know that I was dead at the time. And I just walk up the stairs and go into my house. And then, so I'm in my kitchen, and I'm looking all around, and I see everything has a burnt gold look to it. And I look at the lace curtains. I'm standing at the back door, and I look immediately at the sink, which is across the room. And I had lace curtains over my sink. And I noticed that those were not my curtains. And I started to think, okay, that something's weird here. And so I went from the kitchen into the dining room, which was the next room. And I noticed that none of the furniture in my house was my stuff. There was nothing there that was mine. So I went from the dining room into the living room, and that furniture wasn't my stuff. And then I kept hearing this old time radio show playing. It sounded like something from back in the Waltons or something. And I started to panic because we didn't have radio. I didn't have an old-fashioned radio. I didn't know where that noise was coming from. And I didn't know whose furniture this stuff was, and where was I? I mean, it was my house. I knew it was my house. I could get around, but nothing in it was mine. And I couldn't see, it was like my family wasn't there. I couldn't see anybody. And so I started to panic. And just as I was getting ready to completely lose it, this huge, enormous, loving presence appeared. And it was like I was just wrapped up in this love that was so huge and so big. And so I've never felt that kind of love in my life, ever. And so this formless, humongous formless being was with me. And we did not go up, we didn't go down, we went sideways. And we were moving through these gorgeous pink and gold clouds at great speed. And once we got to the end of the clouds, there was this beautiful garden. And this was just the entrance of the garden. And so, excuse me, we got there, and these two young men stepped forward. And at first I thought they were angels because they were kind of glowing from the inside out. And they were wearing a very expensive, tightly woven linen cloth shirt, open shirt, and lounge pants. As soon as they smiled, I knew exactly who they were. They were my two brothers who had died when they were babies. And it was like Oh my gosh. They looked exactly like my dad when my dad was a young man. And so I recognized them. And um, they looked exactly like my dad. Their hair was longer and curlier. It was my color. Well, it was darker than my color, but it had my color running through it. And they were just absolutely breathtaking. And they were probably between late 20s, early 30s. And so we just had this wonderful family reunion. And I kept telling him, Dad would be so proud of you, because you're so beautiful, and he would be so proud of you.
Now, was it just like a knowing when you saw them that like instantly you knew who they were, right?
Well, at first I thought they were angels because of the way they were glowing and because of what they were wearing. And then once they smiled at me, I could see my dad instantly. It was like, oh my God, I know who you are. It was kind of it kind of hit like somebody hit you over the head with a 2x4. It was like, oh my God.
Now, do you remember anything they said to you specifically?
Well, they actually had to tell me I died because I didn't know that I was dead. I was going through all of this and it was a lot of stuff happening, but it was like I didn't know that I was dead. So they told me that I was dead. And I was like, okay, I can do this. This is okay, because the garden was absolutely breathtaking. It was like the most gorgeous spring day multiplied by 10 bazillion. It was so
What
beautiful.
Kind of colors were there?
Oh my gosh. Well, the reds were redder, the pinks were pinker, yellows were more yellow, but there were colors there that were so beautiful that there were just no words to describe what that color is. It had no name that I know
of. Tell me what you think about this. So we see just in the visible light spectrum, from basically red all the way through blue, but outside of those, you have infrared, X-rays, gamma rays, just all these different wavelengths of actual light. Do you think that when we pass on to the other side that maybe we can see all those spectrums together, and maybe that's why we perceive things that we can't perceive here? What do you think about that?
I believe that's true. My senses were so heightened. And it was like I could see 360 degrees without turning my head. I could see far distances, such great detail, as if it was like I was right on top of it. So your senses are very, very heightened. And
so
it's
basically wherever you project your consciousness is what gets focused on. Is that kind of what it's like?
Yeah. So I'm standing in the garden and I could see the glorious city, which was off in the distance, but yet I could see with such great detail the buildings that were on the outskirts of the city. I could see houses, like on the right-hand side of me as I was facing this glorious city. I could see the wall that surrounded it, but I saw these buildings that were on the outskirts. I saw healing buildings, healing pools. I saw, places where babies and children go when they die. And I saw lots and lots of people, and rolling plains and hills and valleys and streams. And there was a house that was sitting on a bluff, and I could see the ocean water that was crashing up onto the rocks below it. Then there was another house behind it, and it was these were made out of stone. Like it's hard to describe what kind of stone, but they kind of glistened in the light in the sun. And this other house was more like an English cottage type, and it had beautiful rose gardens in the back. I saw a fieldstone wall sort of to the left side of me, in this middle between where I was standing and where the city was. And it had pink roses growing up and over it. And there were wooded areas, and
Now,
it's
was this stuff like physical that you could see, or did it have like more of a transparent look?
no, it was
No.
solid. I could see. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And so you never actually got to go in though, correct? Or did you?
I went into some of the buildings. I didn't go into the city. I saw into the city, and I saw that the buildings were made of like marble or alabaster, and they had columns and archways. And there was one big, huge, round type building in the center of the city that had a golden dome. But I went into a library, and I call it the Hall of Knowledge, but I don't know if that's what it's really called. But it had books.
Could that be similar to what some call like the Akashic records? Basically, it's supposed to be the records of everything in the universe.
Well, it might be. What I saw, it looked like a beautiful, very ornate library. It had books from the ceiling to the floor, and everything was made out of this rich mahogany wood. It was very beautiful, but there were millions and millions and millions of books in this place.
Did you get to like read any of them? Were any pulled out for you? Or you were just kind of passing through?
No, I was just passing through. I didn't pull any books out to look at. But I knew that it was like, because when you're in heaven, you're infused with divine knowledge. I felt like I had a IV bottle of knowledge hooked up to me, and I was getting infused with all this knowledge. So it was like, I knew that there were books there on every subject you could possibly imagine.
Was somebody leading you through this, or was it just kind of, you were kind of popping from place to place?
Well, my brothers were with me for the beginning part of it. And then after I met them, I had a life review. And it was Stephen on one side of me, Michael was on the other, and that huge living presence moved from beside me to behind me. And so we watched it was like watching an old-fashioned movie on an old-fashioned movie reel, and it was black and white, and it went by really fast. And it was from the time I was born until the time I had died that day. And it was kind of like for information purposes only, because when it got done, I thought, okay, there's something missing here, and I don't know what it is. And I asked my brothers, and they just kind of grinned at me. And I thought, oh, you're going to pull the brother card on me now. You're not going to tell me what's going on. But there was a whole bunch of other people that gathered around me, and they were from different time periods, and I knew them and they knew me, but I didn't know where I knew them from. And so all of there were people in beautiful gowns and men in suits, and then people dressed in regular clothes like we wear, or lounge clothes or whatever. And no one was over the age of, I don't know, mid-20s to mid-30s. That, there was no old people, no sick people, no crying, no nothing. Everybody was beautiful and happy, and people had solid bodies. I mean, and when my brothers had told me that I had died, I looked down the front of me like this to see if I still had a body, and I did. I could see my hair and my clothes and my feet. And,
were you
I was
still wearing the same thing that you were wearing when you died?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I know after the life review, is that when you went to the library?
Yes, it was after. Yeah, I had the
And
life review first, and then I was exploring the garden
and your
and my
brothers
brothers.
are still there with you at the library.
Right. Yeah.
Now also, does this all seem like it was happening um, on a different time scale than we would experience on Earth, or was it kind of put in a chronological order for you in your memories?
Um, it was definitely, there was no time where I was at. I was probably only there minutes, but it seemed like I was there for weeks. And there was it's because there was so much happening and I was seeing so much. And it was all so beautiful. And it was all, there was so much love, and acceptance. And I never had that here. So I was just like, wow, wow, wow. Everything was wow. And, but like I said, there wasn't time like we know it here. It wasn't minutes and hours.
That's so an interesting thing I was thinking about. I've heard that time over there is much different than here, and once again, it's one of those things that just is extremely hard to try and put into words. But I wonder if when you went back in your house and everything was like in an old-fashioned, old-time place, if that was kind of like a time warp just from the energy fields, because obviously a bolt of lightning is just so much energy, and the presence was able to come get you and say, okay, we got to go from here. This is, but yeah, I wonder if it was something to do with the lightning that warped something in the time or something.
Well, I've had other people speculate on that and say that probably would be correct. Because I was not alive in the 20s and 30s. So, and that's about the time period that I seem to have gone into. And I know it was my house, but I wasn't alive back then, so I don't know.
So let's pick up at the library. What happens after that?
There was another building that I saw. It was beautiful. It looked like they were having a party, and I just kind of stepped in the doorway. I didn't go inside the building, just stood in the doorway, and I was watching. And I saw people were having a party. They were dancing. Some were dancing and singing along with there was a man on one end of the room, and he was playing this beautiful big grand piano. And the men were all dressed in tuxes or fancy suits, and the women were in these beautiful dresses of all, beautiful colors. And on the other side of the room from where the piano was, there was tables, and they were laden with, they were dressed with the white linen, and then they had these gorgeous flower arrangements that matched the colors of the women's dresses. And so those tables were silver trays that had meats and vegetables and fruits and pastries and breads and all kinds of things. And then there was a man who was holding a silver tray like this, and he had champagne glasses on the trays. And he was passing them out to everybody. And there were candelabras. There was this big, huge chandelier in the middle of the room. And the walls were made of this rich, beautiful mahogany wood, and they had expensive paintings on the walls, and the floor was like a marble floor, and it had a real pretty plush pink carpet on the floor. And the man at the piano, he was in like a suit with tails, and he was sitting at the bench and he was playing the music. But on the piano was a candelabra and a vase of roses, and the roses were just spilling out onto the piano. It was just beautiful. And to see everybody laughing and talking and dancing and singing and eating, and it was interesting. I enjoyed it.
Did you recognize the song he was playing or anything like that?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't recognize the song. I heard the song, but I didn't recognize it. When I was actually in the garden, I did hear music, and it was the most beautiful. I call it big music because it was like stringed instruments and pianos and drums and horns and bells and chimes and I mean just every possible instrument. And I realized that everything has a vibration. And so the landscape that I was seeing in the garden, it was like the leaves on the trees have a vibration. The trunk has a different vibration. The stream that I saw that looked like diamonds, the water has a vibration. The rocks that the stream is going over, they have a different vibration. I heard birds. Their birds have a different vibration. The colors of the flowers, each color has a different vibrational sound. And when you put all of those sounds together, you have this beautiful orchestra. And I heard people singing, and it was like everything and everyone was singing praises to God. And it was absolutely breathtaking.
Yeah, that really sounds amazing. This party, did you have any idea what the party was for?
No, I was in such a wow factor of everything going on that I've been told by people that was probably a welcoming party for me, but I didn't know that. I mean, I was just watching it sort of as an observer watching, and but everything was you could have knocked me over with a feather. There was so much happening and so much beauty and so much love. And if you take the most beautiful scenery here on this earth and multiply it by 10 bazillion, that doesn't even cover the magnificence of what I was seeing there.
Wow.
And so I was just floating along.
So after the party, what happens next?
So my brothers are walking me through the garden, and I'm, there was this grove of trees over in the corner, and people asked me what the grove of trees were. I have no idea. It just looked like trees to me. But Jesus walks out of the grove of trees, and he walks up to me. And when he walks up to me, my brothers disappear. So he walks up to me, and now this was my first clue that I was going to be coming back, but it went right over my head. He said, "I love you. I'm with you. Don't be afraid." And I was like, okay. And, I was just like starry-eyed looking up at this, beautiful, beautiful Jesus. And so he walks with me over to a wooded glen. And in the wooded glen, I saw like sunbeams coming through the trees, and I saw pine cones and pine needles on the ground, and these little blue flowers that were popping up under the pine needles. And there was a log. There was a stream, and then there was a log. And so I sat down on the end of the log, and when I did that, Jesus goes away, and there's a man sitting on the other end of the log. And he starts to talk to me. And I knew that this man was God. And he said, "What would you do if it was just me and you?" And I was like, "What?" I had no idea what he meant. And he said, "What would you do if it was just me and you?" And I was like, I know what you're talking about. I don't, you know, I don't know how to answer your question because I don't understand your question. So he said, well, come with me. So we walk further into the wooded area and there was a clearing. And he kind of just like waved his hand. And when he did, the sky opened up and I could see the vastness of the universe with nothing in it. There were no trees, no cars, no houses, no people, nothing. It was just, you know, all of that, stars and planets and rainbow colored gases and whatever. And I looked at him and I said, oh my gosh, this is huge. And if it was all of this and just me and you would be tired of me after the first 10 minutes with all my questions and my chatter, and then you wouldn't like me anymore. He kind of threw his head back and he laughed. And when he did, his eyes, he had blue eyes and his eyes just sparkled like diamonds. And he was just, his laugh was so infectious. It didn't dawn on me how stupid I sounded. I mean, tells God no, you know, it was like, oh, Sharon, what did you do? But he laughed, and so it made me laugh. And then we went back and sat down on the log, and he asked me the question again. And I said, well, I really didn't know how to answer that particular question. So I was looking, and I don't know if he put this into my head or if I was thinking it. I don't know. I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this big oak tree. And I noticed the detail of the bark, and I see the little veins in the leaves, and there's things moving in the leaves, in the veins in the leaves. And I noticed that the nutrients are being pulled up out of the ground, going into the leaves. The leaves clean the air. We breathe the air. So everything is connected to everything else. And then I don't know why I said this at this point, because I've never read the Quran. I don't know anything about Islam. I don't know anything about this, but I said, God, your 100th name in the Quran is God is everywhere, God is nowhere, and God is in me. He said, yeah, that's right. Well, there really are only 99 names written in the Quran, but the 100th name is never spoken because it's too holy. But there, I just said it, you know, and God said, yeah, that's right. And so then, as I'm looking at this beautiful tree, I said, God, you made this tree. You are in this tree. So when I see this tree, I see you. He said, yes, that's right. And well, then I started thinking about my parents. And I said, God, you made my parents. You are in my parents. So when I see my parents, I see you. And he said, yes, that's right. And I said the same thing about my children. And then I started thinking about people that had hurt me in my life, people that are very cruel. And I said, and these are people I didn't particularly care for, but I said, God, there are people in this world who are very cruel to others, and they hurt people, and they've hurt me. But you made these people, you are in these people. So when I see these people, I see you. And he said, yes, that's right. He said, now I have a question for you. And I was like, oh, okay. And he said, when you look in the mirror, what do you see? Well, my normal response would have been not much, because my whole adult life, I was told I wasn't any good, I wasn't pretty, I wasn't smart, I was all these different things, and I was buying into it. But that's not something that you tell God. So I thought about it for a minute, and I said, God, you made me, you're in me. So when I look in the mirror, I see you. And he was, yeah, that's right. He was so happy. And I thought, you know, I felt like a little girl who just got an A on a test or something, you know, because it was like, he was so happy with that answer. So,
Well, you know, I believe one of the reasons we're, you know, have life and are on earth is to learn knowledge and grow our souls. So it's like we're being tested all the time. And I imagine God is really happy when we pass a test. and you passed his test that he gave you right there saying, hey. So that was probably pretty good.
It was. He was also letting me know that I wasn't all those things that people, earthly view. And he told me, I don't make mistakes. I don't make junk. You are not a mistake. And you are not all those things that people told you were. He loved me. And even though I'm an imperfect being like everybody, I mean, we all make mistakes. We're not perfect. But he does not see me the way the world sees me. He sees me as his perfect creation. And he loves me that way. And he doesn't see me the way the world does.
So many of us just get beat down by life as the years go on. And, a lot of us do get caught in that trap of not thinking much of ourselves and not basically not succeeding in stuff and thinking that we failed when really that's just another chapter in our life. And just years and years of that can really, wear on a person's well-being. And I think that message is such a beautiful one, because it's saying that don't worry about how the world looks at you. Look inside your heart and you'll see how beautiful each and every one of us really are.
Yeah. Yeah, I learned that God is the reader of hearts. He's the healer of hearts, and he sees us in our hearts. And it's not this outer stuff that is who we are. That's not what he sees. It's what is your heart made out of? How much do you love? And another thing I learned when I had my life review, he didn't judge me. Nobody judged me. No one that was around me judged me. And I didn't know I was supposed to be judging me. And I didn't judge me, so there was no judgment.
So you came back from that near-death experience. Did you have any adverse reactions, like from the actual lightning, like with electronics? I know NDEers a lot of times have issues with electronics. Did you?
Well, I have a right bundle branch block in my heart because of the lightning, and I have seizures because of the lightning. But yes, to answer your question, I don't know if it's from the lightning or from the near-death experience, but I do screw up. I have a habit of screwing up phones and computers, and sometimes lights will do weird things.
But yeah, you told me you got angry and all of a sudden realized what your anger was doing. So can you tell us that story real quick? Because that one's pretty neat.
Yeah, I really don't know what it was I was upset about, but I was upset, really upset. And it's not something that happens to me very often. I am very slow to anger and very easygoing, but I got really angry and I went out onto my front porch, and our car was sitting in the driveway right next to the porch. And all of a sudden, the trunk pops open, the lights are flashing, the horn's going off. And I'm like, what in the world? I thought my husband was inside the house playing with the key fob, trying to, play a trick on me. But I went in the house and the key fob was sitting right there on the table and he wasn't anywhere around. So I thought, oh my goodness. Okay, I guess I don't get meth anymore. It was really, really strange.